So you can get weapons that can absolutely one-shot targets in Outer Worlds too, swords with every elemental in the game, and even very cool armors with special effects, including giving you the possibility of flying. In today's video, we'll take a look at some unique items that are sometimes better than most of the legendaries, so without further ado, let's jump right in it. Now, coming up to number 1, you should probably check out Gary. No, it's not some random guy, it's actually a full-blown armor set. And you can get it from the Rift Anomaly that spawns just a bit south of the Bridge of the Revenant over here on Paradise Island. So once you got the Rift Machine, you can head over here down this path, and you should notice a couple of NPCs interacting with the Rift Anomaly. Wait until one of them has a very unfortunate accident, point at which you can open it up and then interact with the corpse to retrieve the armor, as well as the pitch ball from his hand, so also do that. I'm not gonna lie, this looks like the most unique armor I've seen in the game. It's pretty much like some kind of ghoul melted on your body, and it also features the Gary's mod. So this will periodically leash out spiny tendrils to thrash and tear enemies apart. The damage dealt increases with your medical and science skill, so this is something that works really great for a type of build that focuses on those two skills. And I've tried these in battles, and it kind of works a bit like a Thorns sort of build, with the exception that it doesn't just react to damage, it kind of reacts all the time. It's just that it's very random. So you will notice that these tendrils will now latch onto nearby targets and deal some really nice damage. It can even hit multiple targets at the same time, and even when they are completely behind cover. So I found this not to be the greatest damage dealer, but it definitely seems to be useful when you have downtime. For example, reloading your weapon or just waiting behind cover to heal yourself up. It can definitely help you out to deal a little bit of extra damage and take care of the enemies until you actually have your other sources of damage coming in. Technically, there's another blue that we can get on Paradise Island, which can be found at the Crabble spawning grounds. Similarly, if you interact with that Rift Anomaly, this is now going to open up a passage to the nearby building top, point at which you're going to notice that inside of this container you can retrieve literally a shrink ray. And we've covered this before. It almost seems interesting, but mostly it's going to be very gimmicky, in the sense that when you shoot enemies with it, it's going to just make them very small. Normally, you can also use this on strong or powerful enemies, but only if you applied a weakened effect first. So anything like, for example, corrosive should synergize really well with this one. Otherwise, they will just get damage and be stunned briefly, which may actually make this pretty useful if you want a really fast source of stun that you don't have otherwise on your build. At number 3, we have the Spectrum Dance Saber, and this is something that you can get in a couple of ways from the free market station, which is one of the second maps you can actually go into. Now, normally if you go right here to the second choice bar, if you head over up the stairs, you should be able to encounter Fiona. And initially she gives you a quest called A Collection of Rogues, during which you have to collect about 15 cards to be able to give this in and open her up as a shopkeeper. In this case, I had 29 by the time I came back, so this was very easy to me. Once you speak to her, she's going to go into the bag and become the vendor you want. However, it also seems that you may be able to steal some of these items, so if you can come in stealthy, that may also be a possibility. And in this case, she's going to also sell you the Spectrum Dance Saber initially at a cost of 16,500 bits. So this is going to be a pretty steep price to pay, but after playing around with a melee build and using this, it's actually a lot more interesting than I thought it was. So when you enter combat, you are going to get this rhythm playing out, which you will see by the middle arrows over here on both of the sides of the screen. So if you match your button clicks for when that arrows actually hit those blank spots, you're going to progressively build up the energy meter of the saber with more and more of the 6 types of elementals in the game. I recommend going all the way to the max one, as that's going to prolong the buff duration and let you use it for more than one hit. So you will notice that the sword actually cycles between all of the 6 elementals every single second. But it's actually really interesting in combat. Since you have access to all of the elementals, you can really get some crazy results like spreading and ray damage or shock damage to multiple enemies, causing explosions via the plasma damage and so on. And of course, this damage greatly amplifies the power of your sword, so you can pretty much mow down enemies like they are nothing. Now, there are a couple of ways in which you can proceed with this, either as you start the combat combat, find a safe spot and perform that whole dance of charging it up. But you can also do it in the middle of combat if you pay attention to the screen and get the timing right on it. It's going to be a bit more complicated because enemies also attack you, so there are many things to keep a track of, but this is going to be a little bit quicker and you can prolong the duration by just hitting enemies and having more of them affected. Which brings us to a very interesting pop-up weapon, which you can buy over here on the ACS Undisputed Claim. So if you head over on the ship further east on the map here to the Arms Merchant, you can literally buy it from the vendor in the area inside of this room. This is also going to be a pretty steep price, so it's totally okay if you don't buy it. It's definitely going to be the weakest of the bunch, but this gives you shotgun marketing. So this lets you fire up to 3 drones that will accompany you in battle. This doesn't really have any magazine or ammo to worry about. You just shoot the drones, and what they do is they play ads to distract your enemies, literally playing YouTube ads, so your enemies get distracted and instead of attacking you, they attack the drones. Now, on their own, the drones are not the high source of damage. Even though you can cause them to explode by early reloading, they are best used as a means of distraction and keeping enemies busy. So what you can do is go in a battle and start with the drones already spawned around you, which is going to cause them to seek enemies and basically have them distracted by ads. Point at which, as they are distracted, you can switch to another weapon, especially with some of the perks that further buff damage on weapon switching and deal damage to the ones that are currently preoccupied by watching YouTube, I guess. I've also tested this on different types of enemies, so humans will get affected by it. Mechanoids, unfortunately, will not for obvious reasons, but what was equally as interesting was the fact that insects also seem to get affected by the ads. So yeah, I guess that in the Outer Worlds universe, bugs also watch ads, just like everybody else. However, for our next unique item, we actually have a pretty awesome armor set, which we're gonna get from Praetor right here on this side of the map. Eventually, the main story also brings you here to the Automech production facility. And specifically, you want to pay attention to this room on this side of the map. In this case, if you head over here, you should notice a display case with something that almost looks like an Iron Man suit inside of it. So if you interact with the nearby computer, this should give you access to it and open up the display case. Point at which you can retrieve the Zyranium Automech suit. And what's interesting about this is that this gives you access to medical limbo. What this is basically a hover mode. So this is going to consume your gadget energy, but in exchange, you can pretty much float around for as long as your energy meter is still at least partially filled, which is actually very useful to complete puzzles. There are many times when you encounter, let's just say, fully electrified floors or other hazards in the environment, while the hover mode actually lets you fully skip them, pass them without getting any of that damage on your character. And if you combine this with any helmet that further gives you energy recharge rate, like some of the 160% ones you're going to eventually get, this is going to be a game changer. It just makes exploration that much more interesting. And I would also argue that the armor looks really cool and just floating around is really awesome. I also tested jumping from high spots, and just like the tooltip implies, no, this will not prevent fall damage. You pretty much get the full force of it, so you have to be careful not to get one-shotted by gravity. But while we're still on Praetor, there's actually another blue item waiting for you nearby, which is going to be the weapon called the Armageddon. And you're going to find it right here at the Interstitial Reconfiguration Center that the main story also brings you to. However, if you missed it, you can just go back right here inside of this room on the western part of the map to this rift anomaly. And if you interact with that rift anomaly, you're now going to get access to the Armageddon. So this one uses biomass canisters, which means corrosive damage, and has the armaments mode, expels unstable organic rift material, and organic matter attaches on impact, plus alternate fire lobs larger masses. What this means is that the weapon shoots blobs of corrosive damage, but they also get to summon these tendrils that will deal damage over time. There's also an alternate fire mode that you can use by holding down the sights and then charging up the weapon, as that's going to give you a separate way of firing. This is going to cause an even larger blob for even more damage, but also casts an even larger tendril to deal damage to targets. And what's interesting about this is that it's not just going to summon them on the ground level where that blob lands, You can even have it attached to enemies, so even if they run away, they will still get continuously damaged by the tendrils up until they pretty much explode in even more AoE damage. You can even use this preemptively if you want to. For example, say an enemy is about to charge at you in melee range, you can just shoot a couple of blobs on the ground and they will deal continuous damage to everybody in that vicinity. And that includes you as well, so be mindful of that because these tendrils will absolutely wreck everything. And that, ladies and gents, brings us to our last but definitely not least blue item on the list, and that is going to be the Big Bang, the best of the best I've at least noticed in the game. And this is one that actually gets to one-shot pretty much everything. So in this case, you're going to find it on Cloister on the frozen planet, and specifically you will need to travel all the way right here further south to Earl, which is going to be a facility that once you go inside of, you're going to notice that item is actually behind this locked door right there in another display case. So in order to open that up, you're going to need to go here to the right slightly inside of this room, and if you pay attention to the wall in the back, there's a bunch of switches. Now if you also unlocked the invisibility mask, you can check out the wire connectivity, which will reveal the switches you need to power up the nearby engine. In this case, it's going to be the 3 ones in the middle from bottom to top, so just activate them exactly like how I do, which is going to power up that door. And now you can head over, interact with it, and grab the Big Bang. Do, however, keep in mind that this is also going to trigger an enemy alarm. But I tested this around and it's actually been quite impressive. So this has the mass destruction perk, fires a single massive projectile that obliterates everything in its path, and it's also been the highest DPS weapon I have noticed. With my build, it's 1000 by default, but I'm pretty sure it can go even higher than that. And what this does is it takes a little while to charge, but if you unleash it, it's pretty much going to send this ball of absolutely destructive energy that mows down everything in its path. Now, since the ammo count is really small, you will want to line up multiple of them at the same time. So if you can hit every single one of them, you will see here it deals 16, close to 17,000 damage. And I don't even have a build for these types of weapons. So it's probably going to be something that melts everything regardless of difficulty. I haven't tested this on anything beyond hard and whatnot, but if it does work on very hard, let me know in the comments. This has been like one of the craziest weapons I had the pleasure of testing in Outer Worlds 2, and I'm surprised it's just a blue quality one. But it just shows you that some of these blue items can go way beyond and even exceed many of the legendaries you're going to find in the game. So give it a go, and in the meantime also let me know in the comments if there are any other blue items like these that you have encountered, be it weapons or other armor pieces. In the meantime, if you found this video useful, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and activate the notification bell, and I'll see you guys in the next one.